In this video, I'm going to show you how to graph an equation, and we're going to do it from y equals mx plus b. You can determine what the slope and the y-intercept is in an equation if it's written in a specific form. This is the form we're going to use. It says y equals mx plus b. The m, that's going to represent the steepness of your line, so it's going to be your slope, your rise over your run. The number that's in the position of b is going to be where it intersects on the y-axis. So we're going to look at a couple examples right here, and all we're going to do is identify the slope, identify the y-intercept. Going to look at the format of the equation. It says slope should be where m is, y-intercept should be where b is. When you go through this list, 5x, that means 5 is the slope because it's in the spot of m. 12, it says positive, that's in the spot of b. So my y-intercept is 12. I'm going to keep going through the list. 2/3 x, 2/3 was in the spot of m, so my slope is 2/3. -7 or subtract 7 is in the position of b, so my y-intercept would be -7. You need to make sure you keep your negative with that. The next example says -4x. That means my slope is -4. This one has nothing at the end of it. If there's nothing there, that means your y-intercept is 0. Nothing is there. The last one, this doesn't have an x. All this has is an 8. There's no x in this question. That means my slope is 0. And my y-intercept is the number that is available right now. The slope is 0 because there's no x. And then the y-intercept would be 8 for that line. When it looks like this is going to be a flat line. Anytime it looks like this, it's a horizontal flat line with a slope of 0. Okay, now what we're going to do is actually go through the steps so that we can take an equation and then graph the line on a coordinate grid. The first step you want to do is identify what number is representing your y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is going to be in the position of b when you see the equation. Once you know the y-intercept, you're going to take and put a point on your y-axis wherever that number is telling you. After you do the y-intercept, you're going to look at your equation and identify what the slope is. The slope is the number in front of x. When you graph your slope, it says you need to start from your y-intercept point. You'll be starting from the graph where you've already placed a point. Then you're going to do your slope. So slope is always rise over run. I put that right here. If your slope is positive, you're going to go up. If your slope was negative, you would first go down. And then the last step is once you have your 2 points, you're just going to use a straight edge and connect them to make a line. Since it's a line, it should extend in both directions past those 2 points. Now that we've gone through the steps, hopefully when we look at a real example, it's going to make a little bit more sense to you and it won't be so confusing. We said in the last slide that the format of the equation needs to be y equals mx plus b. And over here on my actual equation, it says 3x. That means this 3 needs to go in the spot for my slope. Put a 3 in there. If it's a whole number, that means I would put a 1 under it to help me do my rise and run. Any whole number, if you need to make a fraction, you place a 1 under it. Then after 3x, it says minus 2. Minus 2 is in the same position as B, so my y-intercept is going to be negative 2. Once you know these two pieces of information, that's all you need to graph your equation. Your first step is I'm going to start with my y-intercept. First step, it says negative 2. So I need to take my graph, and if I zoom in, you always start at 0. Negative 2 would be going down. And I would place a dot at negative 2. So I'll come back into normal view kind of right there. After I place my y-intercept dot, I need to come over here and look at my slope. My slope was 3. Positive 3 over 1. When you look at that, if it's positive, I'm getting ready to do my slope now. The second thing is do your slope. It says 3 over 1. That means I should go up 3 and then to the right 1 to place my dot. Okay, we'll leave that like that. I'm going to start from the y-intercept. This says go up 3 and then to the right 1. So here I am. I'm going to go up 1, 2, 3, and to the right 1. So this is where I should place my second dot. Let me get a pen. There's my second dot. The last thing you would do is now connect your two dots, and you need to extend them as far as you can in both directions. And I'm going to have to freehand draw this. Lines go on forever, so you put little arrows on the end of it, showing that it's going to keep going. And that's all you do. Okay, here's another example. Again, remember, the formula or the way that we're going to graph is y equals mx plus b. When you read this equation, it says y equals negative 2/3 x. The slope is the number by x, so I need to put negative 2/3 is my identified slope, negative 2/3. If I keep reading the equation, it says plus 4. Plus 4 is in the position of B, and that's my y-intercept. Positive 4. When you first start to graph, you begin with the y-intercept. That's your first step. Go to your axis where it is at 0, 0. And it says go up to positive 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This is going to be my y-intercept. Place a dot. Then I need to come over and look at my slope. Second thing I need to do is, this one says negative 2/3. So that means, since it's negative, I'm going to go down this time and then always go to the right 3. Whatever your bottom number is, you always go to the right. Again, starting from your y-intercept, do what the slope says. Here's my y-intercept. It says go down 2. 1, 2. To the right 3. 1, 2, 3. This is the spot where I need to put my next dot, and then I'll connect them. Okay, and again, using a straight edge is the best, but on my iPad screen, I'm just going to have to try to do this the best I can. And a line goes on forever, so I'm going to put arrows on the end of it, saying that it can extend farther. Awesome. Example 3, I'm going to put my form back up here. Y equals mx plus b. When you read this one, it looks a little bit different. It says y equals 5x, and then there's nothing else left out here. Well, I know the number by x is 5, and the number by x is supposed to represent my slope, which was m. So I'm going to put 5. If it's a positive number, remember to make it have slope, you're going to put a 1 under it so it can be a fraction. Again, there's nothing out here past the slope. That means my y-intercept is going to be 0. There's nothing out there. So I'm going to place 0. I'm going to say that 0 is at the origin, so the very center. That's where I'm going to put my first dot. When there's nothing out here past the x, your y-intercept is 0. So, boom. Second step is I need to graph the slope. Second thing, do the slope. This time the slope was 5. We said to make it a fraction so you can have rise and run, put a 1 under it. Positive means go up, and then your bottom number is always going to be go to the right. So here I go from the origin, which was my y-intercept, go up 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to the right 1. There will be my second dot that I need to place on my graph. And then again, connect those to the best you can. If you have some type of straight edge or ruler, that would be way better than just freehand drawing it. Okay, awesome. Okay, very last one. Y equals mx plus b. When you look at this equation, it just says y equals -3. This one has no x in there. So since this one doesn't have an x this time, my slope is 0. There's nothing there for a slope. Let's see. This one does not have an x. That means my slope is 0 because it's missing from the equation. However, I do have just a regular number that's going to take the position of b, or my y-intercept, and that is -3. Again, this only says y equals -3. There's nothing to be for an x, so that means my slope is 0. When I get ready to graph this one, I'm still going to start. First step, graph your y-intercept. It says -3. Start from the origin, go down to -3, place a dot. Since this has a slope of 0, I'm not going to go up or down at all. All I'm going to do is draw a straight line. Second step is your slope. This slope says 0, so all I need to do is draw a horizontal line going through the dot that I've already made. It's only supposed to touch at -3, and it should be flat because my slope is 0, and I know that because there was no x in this equation. It just says -3, put a dot at -3, and then draw a horizontal line being flat for a slope of 0. Hopefully that helped you guys learn how to graph equations using slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b.